installing these GNS3 templates or these appliances, I should say, can be a pain in the butt if you don't know what you're looking for and you've never done it before. One of the questions I get, in addition to how do you do your simulations and how do you record your videos, is how do you run a switch? I talk to a lot of guys that are just starting out. Maybe they're doing their CCNA or their NP, and they say, well, how do I run a switch without buying all this physical gear? The first thing that I want to say is that you're always going to need at least two physical switches to run things like maybe UDLD, right? Unidirectional link detection. You're always going to need at least two physical switches to run those things. But one of the really cool things about GNS3 and about Viral is that we can actually now implement these GNS3 appliances. We can do things like run an XRV. We can run a CSR 1000V. We can do this all inside of GNS3. When Cisco first came out with the XRV and the CSR 1000V, you had to run this inside of VMware, meaning you actually had to have ESXi, and you would have multiple machines listed here, and you'd have maybe 1KV1 and 1KV2 and so on and so on and so on to run your CSR 1000s, and then maybe you'd have XRV1 and XRV2. With GNS3, you don't have to do that anymore. With GNS3, you can actually just populate this all inside of your VM, and then you can put it all inside of your topology. So if I go over to my GNS3 client, I could possibly have all of these devices here. So I could have my switches, I could have my routers, I could have my 1K, my 1000V in here, I could have maybe my XRV here. And I can have this all inside of GNS3 running these templates. It's really, really cool. But in the existing version, which if you look on my screen, you can see is 1.5.2. In the existing version, it does take a little bit of doing. So let's actually take a look at how to get this running. What you'll need to prepare for this is you will need a valid login to GNS3's website, which I am not currently logged in, and I don't need to be because I actually already have this pre-downloaded for you. But you'll need a valid login, and what you'll do is you'll click on Marketplace, and then you can highlight Appliances. Once you highlight the Appliances link, it'll give you your XRV, your iOS Layer 2, IOU images if you're using those, which, by the way, these two guys are only for Cisco TAC. All right, so be careful if you're running that. I'm not going to show you how to turn them on and how to actually do it because, again, it's only for Cisco TAC. So if you're running that, good for you. They run great, but you really shouldn't be running them outside Cisco. You'll want to download maybe your ASAV and your iOSV. So if you're studying for route switch, maybe for your CCNA or your NP in route switch, you would want this guy. You might want this guy in addition to your 7200 because your layer 3 image here is not going to use as many resources as it does as your 7200 does. If you're studying for maybe your CCNA security, maybe you want your ASAV and so on and so on. If you're studying for your service provider, you would want this. So let me just jot these down here. Actually, let me make this a little bit neater. So you'd want to download this for security. We'll say RS over here. We'll say RS over here. We'll say service provider here and service provider here. So depending on what you're studying for, you may want to download some of these different options. I think somewhere in here there's also NXOS for Titanium. Let me see here. Yep, there it is. So maybe if you're studying for data center, you would want this guy, but Titanium doesn't give you a whole lot. So don't expect a lot here. You really can't run a lot of data center specific features with this image. So you'll need that. The other thing you will need is a valid license to some of the Viral images. Now, if you're like me, I feel bad because when Viral first came out, I was like, yes, this is awesome. And I went and I bought this guy right here. And about an hour into it, I was like, forget it, going back to GNS3. So this is a big no-no, right? Don't do that. You really would only need to, maybe buy this image or this image here in order for you to get the valid images. So, it's not really expensive. It's not the end of the world. You may know somebody that's willing to give you these licenses, although I don't know how that would, how Cisco would feel about that. So don't quote me on doing that. Bottom line is you're going to need these Viral images. So when you first get Viral and you log in and you go to and you follow the links to actually download Viral, this is going to be where you end up. And this would be to download the actual full-blown version of Viral that comes prepackaged with all these images, and you just basically install it, do your thing, turn it on, and you're ready to go. Or you can download the individual images, and those individual images are right here. So for us, in our example, If we want to run the CSR 1000V, I would click the 1000V, and then I would select whichever version of code that I want to run. For the XRV, same concept. So for 601, I would click this download button. For 513, I'd click this download button. For those of you RNS guys, you might click iOS V, and you would do 156 here to download, and then for your layer 2 image, you only have one, which is 15.2.4, and again, you would click this download image, right? And you would have all that prepackaged for you, which I've already done. So let me show you guys how to actually get these guys installed into GNS3. Now, if you've downloaded the appliance, so if you've gone here into GNS3's website and you've gone to the appliance, you've clicked here, you've said, yup, you've downloaded the template. If you already have that pre-downloaded, then what you can do is right in GNS3, you can say File, Import Appliance, and then it's going to bring you to where the appliances that you want to download. So we'll go ahead and go into our appliances folder. I'm going to say my layer 2 image. I'll say open, and this is going to be pre-populated for me. So I'm going to go ahead and say next. In my case, I only have one remote computer. If you guys have more than one, you may want to split the load. I mean, I have 3 or 4 servers sitting here. I just don't have them powered on. But if I wanted to, I could run different images on different servers. So maybe I want to have the XRVs on one remote server because they're resource hogs, and then have the rest on another server. You can do that. If you want to know how to do that, watch the video on our YouTube channel installing the template on or the GNS3 VM and ESXi. So we'll say next, and here, if you don't have KVM extensions enabled, not necessarily on the VM. So let me go back to the VM here real quick. You can see here that it tells us that that KVM is enabled, and it's true. If you don't have the physical server, this guy, if this server is not capable of running some of the GNS3 extensions, then what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to run any of these images. You have the physical machine that you're setting this up on has to have the ability to run the VMware extensions in the CPU. So you have to go into the CPU, you have to go into the BIOS, make sure you have all that turned on. And if you can't run some of those VMware images, or I'm sorry, some of those virtual machines, you're going to get an error right here. Okay, but we're okay because I have a good enough server. So we'll say next. Now, here, automatically, if you have the image in your downloads folder, automatically GNS3 is going to find the image. So when you're loading layer 2, when you've loaded that appliance, it knows you're looking for 15.2.4055, and it's going to go ahead and find it. If you don't have it there and you put it on your desktop, what you would do is it would give you something here that said not found. You would click import and then simply browse to wherever you have it. So in my case, I have it in a folder called viral images, and here you have it. So I have the 1000V, the XRV, and my layer 3 and my layer 2 image. So, in my case, I would just highlight that, say open, and there you have it. It says ready to install. Now, there are times, like if you're going to do the ASAV, where you may have multiple options here. You want to highlight the one that you're actually going to install. If you highlight one that says not found, it's going to give you an error that obviously it can't install it because it's not found. That makes sense, right? So highlight the one you want to install and say next. It's going to say, would you like to install this? Of course we would, otherwise we wouldn't say next. It'll bring you to this final screen. Really nothing you can change here. So say next, finish. It's going to go ahead and install it for you, and we're all set. So we'll say okay. Now, if I want to edit this at all, I would say edit preferences, and down here is where I can edit this. So if I want to change the name, I would just simply edit it. I'd go in here and I can change the name. I can change how much RAM the device is given. I can change even where GNS3 allows the template to live. If I click the network tab, I can change how many adapters I have. I could change them to Ethernet instead of gig if I wanted to, really just the label. I wouldn't mess with any of this though, just leave it be. Advanced settings, if you wanted to change any of the advanced settings in here, you could. But again, you really don't need to. You can just leave it as the default. The only thing I generally change is the name. Now, in order to drag this in, you would do the same thing that you do. You just click and highlight and drag it right in. And you can see that we get a machine over here and we're good to go. However, with 152, which again, that's the version we're running, 152, There is a problem with the actual operating system that the VM works in, that the VM uses, the actual Linux OS, that does not allow these images to run by default. So it takes some tweaking. Let me show you some of the tweaking we need to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, open up this console here. We're going to go to the shell option because we need to do some typing. Now, if I type this command uname a, oops, sorry, I put a space there and there's no space. We're going to see that I'm currently running 4.2.27. What we need to do is actually downgrade this, okay? Now, in order to downgrade this, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have the most current updates so that we can actually downgrade and get the right version. So we're going to say sudo app update. I'll actually up arrow and show you that command one more time just in case you didn't catch it. Let's just wait for this to finish. Almost done. All right. So that command once again was sudo. Nope, I got to click in there. Was sudo apt -get and then update. Okay. Once you do that, what we're going to do is we're going to say sudo space apt. We're going to say get, and I'm going to say install Linux, and I'm going to say generic. Now, those of you guys that are Linux gurus out there, you'll probably get this done way, way faster than me, and you may know exactly what I'm doing, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to go into all the nitty-gritty and the details. I'm just going to show you guys how to do this to get this running. Now, once I say yes here, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video because this is actually going to take a while to download. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. We'll pause the video, and then I'll come back as soon as this is done. So I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. Okay, gents, so that little download and install finished, and I did go ahead and reboot. So once I've rebooted, we're going to want to go back into the shell. So here I am just fresh out of a reboot. So I'm going to hit enter here. We're going to go back into the shell, and I'm going to say sudo, and I'm going to say apt-get or apt-get, remove Linux -image and then the actual image that I want to uninstall, which is going to be 4.2.0.27 generic. Now I'm going to leave this up on the screen because I want you to write it down or copy it off somewhere, because this is the again in 152, the image that you're going to want to remove. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit this command here. And again, I'm going to pause the video because it does take a little bit for it to actually install. So I'll say yes, pause, and then come right back. Alrighty, we're making good progress here. Now, the only thing I want to enter here is I just want to check, just see where we are here. Okay, so at this point, we're still running 4.2.0.27. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reboot at this point. So we'll say sudo reboot. And let this guy reboot, and hopefully when it comes up, we should be running on 3.16 or something like that, whatever the downgraded version is. And we'll find, or at least what we should find, hopefully, is that once we've done this, that our version of GNS3 has been downgraded, and we should be able to run those particular images. So let's just give this a second here, and I don't want to pause and come back on you, so I'm just going to kind of hang out with you guys here for a minute, wait for this to come back up. Again, I gotta find out how some of these guys put some music in the background to this. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll hit enter here. And I'm going to go down to the shell. And I'm going to say uname space -a. And we see that we're now on 3.13. So you see this here? See this here? This is essentially, I'm going to grab my pen here. There we go. This is essentially what we were looking for. So now that we've downgraded to 3.13, let's go back into GNS3. We're going to have to restart this. So let's close down our client, and we'll just go ahead and restart it. So let's bring this guy back up. And we'll say cancel. We don't really need to save a topology. We'll click and drag our switch in here. We'll start it up. We do not get an error message down here. Turns green up here. Let's actually see if this guy's booting up. Let's see what's going on. Still doesn't seem like it's booting. Oh, there we go. Just took a minute. I don't have any patience, apparently. So there we go. So we should see some details here. We saw this boot up here, so we should start seeing this actually boot up for us. Let's actually, while this is running, let's actually get another appliance in here. So we'll kind of leave this minimized, and we'll see what happens. So we'll go over here. We'll say File, Import Appliance. We'll go to appliances, and then let's say iOS V. This is going to be for our virtual router, if you will. So we'll say next. Same thing as the remote computer. We'll say next, next. Now here you can see this is one of those examples I was saying before, how you may have multiple versions of operating system that GNS3 might look for, and you may not have these, right? So if I try to install this now and I say next, it's going to say, sorry, I can't do it. I need to highlight the one that I'm actually going to install, which is going to be the one that's found. And I can say next, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to install this? And I can go ahead and say yes. We'll say next, and then finish. Now, remember that some of you, for me, for example, I already had a switch that was uploaded in my my remote server here. When you first drag a device in here that you've uploaded, it's going to give you this nice pop-up box, and it's going to say, hey, do you want to upload this to your remote server? You have to say yes. These images that you're importing from Viral, these appliances here, they have to be running on your remote ESXi server or your remote virtual appliance. Again, this can be in VirtualBox living on your desktop. This can be in VMware Workstation living on your desktop. It doesn't have to be an ESXi server. The process is still the same as what I showed you. It's just you would do it in a different type of client. Again, you have to say yes. And depending on the size image, it may take some time for it to actually get uploaded. Let's see what this guy's doing. This guy's starting up just fine. So let's go ahead and let's start up our router here. So we'll start up that guy. Let's open up Putty in there as well. And we'll kind of leave these both up on the screen, and let's see what happens. So we'll move this guy here. We'll move this guy here. So you can see we have CLI access here on our switch. So I'm just going to say config T. We'll say host name SW1 for switch 1, and we'll say control C. And let me just say show run. Expand this out a bit here so that we can see a little bit more. There we go. So if I expand this out, now you can see we actually do have a fully functioning switch that's actually running here. So I could actually say, config T, I could say VLAN 10, name XIE for XtremeIE, we'll say exit, and then do show VLAN brief. And there we go. I have a VLAN that's been created. And again, I know the text is a little bit small, but you guys can get the idea. Our router here, our layer 3 router is booting. Sometimes these viral images do take a little bit longer to start, but the point is that now you can run a virtualized environment without having to have all of these physical switches and these physical hardware. You can kind of, you can have 4 or 5 switches loaded into your environment, and you can actually test spanning tree. You can test these different types of things. All right. Let me actually really quick. I do have secure CRT, so let me actually change this quickly. And we'll say secure CRT, and we'll use that instead of Putty, so that maybe you can see it a little bit better. Let's do that. So let me grab secure CRT and bring that in here. I think the font is a little bit bigger. All right, so there we go. So again, do show VLAN brief, and you can see the VLANs that I've created, right? So here's my XIE VLAN that I created. I can say do show span. Let's say VLAN 1. I got to learn how to type apparently. We'll say VLAN 1, and it actually brings up full-blown spanning tree. So, this is actually a full-blown layer 2 switch that's running in my topology. I can go ahead and I can open up my router, assuming that it's still booting, of course, but again, the point is that once you run through those Linux commands, you can actually get these viral images actually up and running in your GNS3 topology. And again, you can go back to this marketplace. Let me click cancel out of here. And you can do the same process with the XRV, with the CSR1000V, with the ASAV. And just to show you one last time, in case you haven't closed down the video already, you would just do File, Import Appliance. You would go to where that appliance is. So in my case, maybe this XRV, and we would just say Next. We want to say remote computer, next. Again, as long as we have everything ready in our BIOS, as long as our server can support it, we're good. We'll say next, and it's going to want to find the right image file. In my case, I only have this one. I don't have 600. I have 601. I'm going to highlight it. We'll say next. Say yes that we want to install it. Next, finish, and there we go. The appliance is installed. It's really that easy. You just need access to the viral images. And that, I think, is the piece missing with a lot of these guys that are installing the appliances. They're missing where to get these images, and you can get them right from Viral's website as long as you have the license, okay? Don't forget that the first time you drag it in, it's going to ask you, do you want to upload it? You'll say yes, and again, it may take some time based on the size. Once you're done, though, guys, you have your full-blown images here and running, and you're happy and ready to go. All right? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.